Is Casual Babble. Good morning, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. This is BC Babbles, and you're enjoying another episode of Casual Babble, the Queen City's live-streamed morning show and podcast, coming to you from Ray City, USA. Before we hop in, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell, that way you're notified about all future content on the channel. And if you want to go ahead and engage us on Podbean this morning, where we are also going live, be sure to give us a follow there as well. All right, moving into this morning's topic, what I want to really discuss today is the kind of training you should be expecting to receive when you're heading into a new job, which may sound a little redundant. Well, not redundant, pretty necessary, honestly. What am I thinking? But yeah, I want to talk about the kind of training that you should be receiving when you're new to the job. And that's because as that important first section of experience between yourself and that new company, I think it's really important that you're able to make sure that there's a solid foundation being built for you that you can really rely on, and that ultimately allows you to go in there and be efficient as the newest employee of the company. And that's really kind of the goal for anybody, right? So one of the things I think is important about that element of coming into a new job is, firstly, what you should be receiving is training from somebody who has the bandwidth to be training you. And I say this because, obviously, again, the end goal for you is to not only be able to perform efficiently, but to feel as though you can perform efficiently. And if the training is coming from somebody who doesn't have that bandwidth, then you're not going to be able to really feel that, because they're going to be focusing on other things that clearly their responsibility load is calling their attention for. So being trained by somebody who has the bandwidth is going to provide them the opportunity to really help you feel like you're being given the attention you need. And we need that attention as we're new to an environment, because we need to understand, one, the kind of environment that we are entering and the kind of structure, pace, and activity we're going to be expected to be able to handle in, right? So being trained by somebody who has that time is very important. And a lot of times you can find yourself in a situation where you are being trained by somebody who does not have that bandwidth. A lot of times they're in a situation where all their bandwidth is really being taken up by somebody else, and as a result of that, they're not able to focus on making sure that what they're teaching you is 100% what they should be teaching you. And so I want to keep that in mind going into the idea of the kind of attention and personal activity and relationship building you should be experiencing in this new job. Additionally, what's really important, in my opinion, is to be training in such a way where you feel like you can ask as many questions as possible. Now, one of my big cornerstones about trying to be as optimal as possible in a work environment is that I feel like I can be as communicative as possible. Naturally, I'm a very communicative person, obviously. And I think that if I'm not communicative, then something's going to slip through the cracks. And I want to make sure that that's not something that occurs, right? So let me just check something real quick. Testing. hearing a weird echo, which I hope is not being translated over the air. So yeah, that is something I think is very important for me. And I'm, again, overly communicative myself. I love to talk, obviously. And I think if I didn't take as many opportunities as I do to ask questions, I know at some point early along in the process of operating in this new position, I'm going to trip. And I know that's not going to reflect well on me for the most part. And I am all about trying to make sure that I can be as optimal as possible. Also, I do that because I know I'm the kind of person who always finds himself in that off expected situation where it's like I ask the questions that gear towards the not common moments in a job because I know by my luck I'm going to be the one experiencing those, and I prefer just to be prepared now as opposed to later. So one of the things I like to make sure that I do is not only try to really take in the concept of what I'm learning quickly, but additionally know enough to ask those, again, really kind of off-brand questions, because if I don't, I will most certainly be the person dealing with those weird situations right off the get-go. And I do not want to be caught off guard like that. Plus, when you're early on, you're trying to not have as many mistakes. Granted, mistakes and beginners' mistakes should be anticipated by whomever your supervisor is. So, that by itself should give you some of a grace period and a bit of leeway, because if you're not really bumping and kind of nudging the parameters of your job here and there in the beginning, one, either you're superhuman or you're probably overqualified for the job. And I don't think you should ever go into a job that you're overqualified for and not feeling challenged by, because you should feel like you're growing. Those are my thoughts about that. Another thing that I think is really important for a new member of the team is the ability to be hands-on. I am not, and I said this in a recent interview of mine, I am not a good lecture student. I never was. In college, I could not stand any of my courses that were like sit here and endure this 2-hour-long lecture. The number of times I didn't fall asleep, I'm still very much surprised by, because nowadays, I would not have made it through those full lectures conscious. It wouldn't happen. So with that in mind, I think another important element for training is the ability for the new employee to be able to be hands-on while still kind of in that safety net of your training. You still have somebody who's helping you, who's guiding you, so you can figure out how to address those bumps early. That way, by the time you are fully hitting the ground running with this job, you not only have the knowledge from the lectures, but you have I've applied this stuff, I've been hands-on. So now, for the most part, aside from those weird situations that I mentioned, you're able to handle these interactions with whomever you're working with, whether or not it's client-based, whether or not it's company-based, and maybe you're centered more around asset coordination, or maybe you're in the communications aspect of a company, and so you're dealing with either people they provide services for, or your communication centers around producing content for the company. Either way, training and getting the chance to have a hands-on section of that training, I think is very, very important. So I think one of the most difficult moments in my experience when it comes to not the best kind of training is, one, being trained by people who don't have the bandwidth for it, but also then being thrown into a whole different job essentially within the department that I was working in, but that I was not actually at all trained for. early on into my first job out of college, I was trained for one aspect of the operations in the department. And then 2 weeks into that employment, I was asked to not full time, to cover a full time individual who worked the other operations of the department that I was not trained in. And obviously, I had a couple of bumps because I had never done it before, but my boss at the time did not know how to process that information. So make sure that you're getting what you can out of training. Always feel like you can inquire, be over communicative. And my other thing about being communicative is because even if they don't think the question I have with one of those like odd situation questions is important or needs to be addressed in that moment, at the end of the day, if and when that odd situation occurs, at the very least, I know that I can say, well, at least you can't say that I didn't ask because I knew this would happen. So yeah, very important to me. I think that these aspects of training are super important, especially if you're going into a situation like kind of like a client retention position or a sales position or just some kind of client facing position where you're going to be ultimately on either a whole other team or in a set of teams. And with that, I think another important element of training that you should receive is the ability to engage with that future team as well. So for instance, a position of mine recently was kind of post-sales client retention. I was calling clients all the time, making sure that the marketing campaigns they received or that they purchased were being set up properly, were kind of operating the way that they're supposed to. Additionally, in that position, I was brought in with a batch of people to train, but I would ultimately be assigned to a team on the floor. And thankfully, training allowed me to start interacting with that team once I knew who that team was. Because another thing you want to be able to do is to be able to tap into some kind of collective established set of skills, strategies, and overall just experience and knowledge so that you can take that established ability and apply that to help cultivate your style of how you're going to be able to perform in this new job. So getting to interact with that team early on, one, let me do just that. But two, and I think also equally, if not more importantly, allowed me to already have a foundation of an established rapport with that team so that they knew me to a degree already. So by the time I hit the floor with them, they knew who I was, I knew who they were, and we were able to start just kind of intermingling in a great way. And I had a great set of individuals that I could already call upon to really have that foundation, but also the freedom to still ultimately perform this role in a way that fit my style. Because I think having a little bit of room for individuality is going to allow you another bit of room to find enjoyment in the position. Real quick, want to take a moment to let you know if you've ever wondered how to submit your story, your questions, or some office gossip to have engaged with the show. There are 2 ways for you to do just that. I have a Reddit community called Talk Office Gossip. You're welcome to share your story there. I've put that link in the bio or in the chat. Also, you can head on over to casualbabble.com. There's a page called Submit Your Story. Use your name, be anonymous, totally your call. Submit your story there. My admin will let you know on both platforms when your submission is used for the show. And if any submissions don't make it to the show, they will make it into the monthly Casual Babble newsletter, which is coming out in a week and a half. And so you want to make sure that you are in the mailing list for that. And that is also going to be on the main homepage of casualbabble.com, right below the main picture. It says sign up and keep up. Put your email in there. make sure you're on the mailing list and you receive the next letter of the Casual Babble newsletter. And again, those submissions that go into the newsletter will be in the advice column section that you see there. And if you're looking for ways to support the community and the channel, you can check out my Patreon. There are 3 tiers that allow you to be acknowledged as an awesome supporter, as well as gain early access to typical traditional content on my channel, including vlog, ASMR, and podcast videos, as well as to custom content. And if you prefer more of a one-time or a custom amount donation, there's also a Buy Me a Coffee link. Those links are all in the chat right now. Go check them out. So let's move on to our first submission this morning. This one comes from Aaron. Let's see here. So the title says, "Trust me, karma has their number." Love the title. All right. So it says here, had a male supervisor who was a problem for years and who finally got fired. At my first job, we had a male supervisor in his 40s who would say vulgar and inappropriate things to younger female staff, those usually who were in their 20s. Don't love that. He would make lewd comments about the way some females dressed, especially athletes who were in uniform. Gross. It was bad enough that he'd even made comments about underage girls who were participating in athletic summer camps, and he was still employed after that? Okay. I would have a talk with management way early on. He had a younger daughter as well, so agreed. There were even reports that he had touched a few female staff inappropriately as well, where the police, and anytime he was reported and spoken to, he would play the race card and wouldn't be punished or reprimanded, and the one who reported the incident would be told to deal with it. What does that even mean? They usually quit. By the way, it wasn't a race thing. The other POC supervisors at the time were disgusted by him as well. Finally, on one glorious day, karma smacked this man with a vengeance. Okay, continue. It was a known fact that he had a drinking problem, as in he would start drinking in his car as soon as he clocked out. So this one particularly sunny summer day, I love that it was a sunny summer day, he had made his way to the local walking trail in town and proceeded to drunkenly flash a woman who was jogging and say some pretty vulgar things to her. That is literally the opening scene to an SUV episode. Like legit. The woman left the area, went home, got a video camera, and returned to the walking trail parking lot. Yes, he was still there, and yes, he completely flashed her again on video. Well, we love an idiot, don't we? She took her evidence to the police department, who then showed up 2 days later to arrest him in front of everyone. His mugshot was of him in his work uniform. We love the brand placement there. The cherry on top of this karma Sunday was that a month later, I was reading the local newspaper and he was in it again for being busted with a prostitute. I may or may not have shown the article to my coworkers. We did feel bad for his daughter, though, because she was a super sweet little girl. But after what we had to put up with, he deserved his double dose of karma. I 100% agree. Firstly, that is awesome. You love when karma strikes down an idiot on a sunny summer day. It could not get any better than that. Love it. All right, moving on to our next situation. Yeah, and if you're ever in a position where you're dealing with a lewd individual like that, and management, at least immediate management, is just like deal with it. I am not ever going above someone's head, because as scary as you might think a manager or a supervisor is, trust me, what'll typically scare them is a really good HR. So don't be not above going above their heads. Absolutely do it. And that reminds me of an issue I had, or not that I had, but that I know with one of my first jobs while I was in college. I was in food services, and I was with this restaurant for like 4 years. And when I started working there, there was an individual who worked there who was similar. He went so far, though, during one of the cashier's birthdays, who was a woman, he got her a Sassy Time toy. Yeah. And he brought it with him in a bag to work and presented it to her in the bag to work during operation hours. Yeah, it happens. He didn't stay around too long after that, from what I recall. Happy days. Happy days. Let's see here. Next submission here. Okay, I'm going to shift the visuals a little bit here. Perfect. All right. Oop. And boom. Love it. All right. Needing advice. I just found out that my manager has been interviewing people for an open position in our office, but then promising my position to them as an option. Okay. I don't think this type of behavior is warranted. The supervisor over my manager has even said that I am a great employee and she doesn't want to lose me. I've worked with this company for almost 3 years and I feel like I'm at a breaking point. My manager is so toxic. Hate that. She has told me numerous times that a good person in this position would bring me coffee in the morning. What kind of position is this? Because I've never heard of a 3-year-long internship, so I'm assuming this is some kind of executive assistant role because you could never. I've even been yelled at for asking simple policy questions that I feel I need to have clarification on, and then to be told that I need to contact other departments for that information. I have completed reports also and paperwork that clearly state that a manager need to draw up. Mind you, she has over 10 years of experience in this career, which does not matter. At this point, what am I missing? Please help. Well, firstly, I think the fact that you stated that the supervisor over your manager likes you and knows that you are an employee of worth is something you should definitely make use of. There should never be, at any point in any job, there should never be an issue with you wanting clarification on a policy, because, policy is kind of how businesses are run. And clearly your boss, especially if she's supposedly has 7 more years of experience than you in that field, should be able to clarify any of the policies because she's been there. And additionally, unless you've been told, if this is the situation I think it is, what you need to do is, again, I'm never above going over my boss's head. Do it. Talk to the supervisor over your manager and ask them to assist in facilitating a conversation, because clearly your manager's not communicating with you that, one, they're offering your job that isn't an open position to prospective new employees, and there seems to be a dissonance there between the quality of your performance, which the supervisor is recognizing, and your worth as an asset to a company, which you are an asset to the company. If you're an employee, you're an asset. And what your manager clearly thinks. So I would have the supervisor facilitate a conversation, because I feel like the kind of manager with the habits that they have, they would just dismiss your concerns. So have the supervisor facilitate that conversation so that you can get some answers, because you deserve that. You deserve information like what's the deal here? Is this something that can be fixed? Because, my opinion, that should not be happening to you. Alrighty here. New submission. Employee won't take time off when she's sick. Ugh, this is going to be a gray area. So I work with an employee we all love and value. She does great work, but she will almost never take sick days. She had COVID, strep, and other infectious illnesses this past year, and she refuses to take time off for any of this. I've tried to explain to her that not taking sick time is just unhealthy for her. Very true. It can put our entire team at risk. Also very true. Additionally, I don't want my interns to get the impression that they need to barrel through if they get sick. I think it's an unhealthy standard, which much too apparent in the working world. Very true. Very much agree. I'm also just afraid that she will end up getting so sick that she has to be hospitalized, which can happen if you don't allow your body the rest it needs. I don't know how to enforce this point, since I don't think you can force someone to take a sick day. Anyway, to have a gentle but firm conversation. Anyway, to have a gentle but firm conversation about this. So it's a bit of a gray area, kind of, to a degree. I get, if this is a position for this employee where like every hour counts, to a degree, I understand the desire to work despite being sick. I do. But ultimately, here's the thing, and I'll talk to like you from like an employee perspective here. Like, what I think she needs to understand is that while you love her and there's a lot of value in how she operates in her job, at the end of the day, the audacity, and I'm going to use the word audacity because there is audacity here, for someone to be willing to just put the team at risk goes against the promise that you typically make as an employee to help maintain a safe work environment. And so every time, for whatever reason, one would choose to do this, to be sick with the likes of COVID, strep, and other illnesses that are contagious, is license for termination, because they are clearly completely disregarding the collective health of the team. If there's any, I would look into any kind of PTO time, any kind of way in which they can stay at home and get some kind of compensation with PTO time. Otherwise, it's like you like, look, have a sit down with her when, like, as soon as possible. Be like, look, we love you. We appreciate the kind of efficient work that you do, but at the end of the day, you are putting the team's health at risk. You are not helping us to facilitate a safe work environment. And if you keep doing this, we will have to consider your termination. Because as much as I am very pro every employee should be able to live off their wages, as much as I'm very pro, an employee getting out of their job as much as they put in, and it seems like she puts a lot in, at the same time, you cannot argue with the fact that if you have bugs and infections like that, you need to stay home. You need to allow your body the time it needs to recuperate and to heal. Not only for yourself, but because you need to help maintain a safe and healthy work environment. Healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. So that's the talk I would have. Be like, look, we love you, but if you do not stop doing this, if you do not take your sick days when you are sick, or heck, at the very least, get your vaccines. I don't know if she's vaccinated or not, but if she's not, get them, or we will have to consider termination. Because as much as we love you, we can't have you continue to put the employees at risk, especially interns. You got interns that are concerned that they would have to push through if they're sick, which is not true. But also, typically interns don't get paid. So it's like, God, like how sucky would it be to have an internship where you're not getting paid, and plus someone's trying to get you sick every other week? That's not good. That's not good at all. So that's the combo I'd have with this person. Let's see here. Shush phone. Okay. Looking for a bit of reassurance that I've done the right thing by applying to other jobs. I have a job at the minute, which is great on several levels. I work from home, have a 4-day week, and get various perks and benefits. However, it's a tiny company, only 3 full-time people and 1 part-time. That is very tiny. It must be a startup. And there's just no room for progression. Okay. The level of the work is way below my ability. The clients are uninspiring, and my portfolio is not being updated with good work. I work in a very client experience and portfolio focused industry design. Okay. And as soon as you start to slip behind, it gets more difficult to get another job. I'm afraid if I stay where I am, comfy but not being challenged creatively, and if the day comes, do I lose my job or have to leave, will I struggle? So today I contacted a recruitment and agent who said they will put me forward for two great jobs. One is a step above my current role, and one is a bigger company with more room to move about. They're both back to 5 days commuting to the office. Thing is, with working from home for over 2 years, I've lost a lot of confidence and also have got very comfy. I'm sitting here now regretting my applications and feeling bad for potentially screwing my current employer over or leaving my cushy position. Should I listen to my head and change jobs, or my heart and stay where I am over this? So when it comes to the situation, you should any employee should be feeling challenged because you want to grow, right? You're starting somewhere in a company and ultimately you want to see yourself go somewhere else. And if you're not being challenged, if you're seeing very low level work that is not calling on you creatively, then that's not really going to happen. Now, it sounds like the company is very small, very small. Maybe a startup. I'm not sure how long it's been active and when it was incepted, but it doesn't seem like it has the bandwidth to prompt anyone to go higher. So as much as I think anyone would appreciate how much you've been with the company and that you enjoyed the opportunity it provided, at the same time, they have to know that they're just not in the bandwidth or the resource level to help you do more. And I think that finding another opportunity that actually provides a notable set of advancement is the way to go. It's can be a tough call for sure. I think the hardest thing for any time I've left a company is that I'm leaving a team that I like. Love the people, love the kind of innate chemistry that I had with the team. But ultimately, I needed to feel like I was going to be presented with better advancement opportunities that I wasn't going to be receiving where I was. Now, as far as you getting comfy at working from home, honestly, you can get past that. And I'm sure if you are going into a company with enough advancement opportunities, one of those advancement levels will offer you a certain number of days from home. That shouldn't be your concern, honestly. I mean, I get like being comfortable at home. Personally, though, I could not be at home 5 days a week. I would go stir crazy. But that's something you can get over that. Like, I'm sure you got some good jeans and a polo somewhere. You'll be fine. Let's see here. Does willful misconduct cancel out unemployment benefits eligibility? Asking for a friend. What happens when an employee is being blatantly insubordinate with the intent of being fired to collect unemployment? Can a case be made to hinder said employee from collecting anything? It might depend on the states. I'm more aware of the North Carolina aspect of it since that's where I live. I know that with North Carolina, when you are applying for unemployment, one of the questions you will get is if your termination was your responsibility, your fault. So if that's the case with wherever this person does work, whatever state they're in, if it's a state thing, it might be a federal thing. But if that's the case and they are willfully trying to get themselves fired, so I don't know if this person's just looking to not work but receive money, then it will likely cancel it out. Because they'll have to be honest, right? Because it'll go through your previous employer. So, and they'll be contacted and they will be asked to verify your responses to those questions. And if that's one of the questions, then yeah, this individual would definitely be screwed and they would not be able to receive any unemployment benefits. So yeah, I would definitely convince them to go about it in a different manner for sure. Let's see here. How do you get out of work mode? I work an 8 to 5 for a pharmaceutical company, and every day when I get off, I keep thinking of the next day. I go to bed at night with only 5 hours of free time, and the rest of it is designated to sleep. I'm trying to have more free time to feel like I'm not at work and unwind, but I can't shake it. Not really. Do you guys have any tips on getting out of work mode? My anxiety has been killing me. I've been in constant work mode and I need advice on getting out of that mindset to outside of work. When I tell you that one of the biggest and most important things about um, being employed anywhere, having any kind of job, is the ability to let it go. I can't state that enough. It is one of the most important things you need to be able to do, regardless of where you're working, and how no matter how dedicated you are. And it's not an easy thing to always do depending on the kind of person you are. You might be somebody who obsesses over the way in which the things you do during the day kind of trickle off and affect operations during off hours. But in the case of a pharmaceutical company where, so far as I can tell, nothing you would be doing during the day, during a day, necessarily trickles into the next day. I could be very wrong. But my way of approaching this, trying to bring myself to the point of not, what am I trying to say? Of letting go is, one, remember that you're not being compensated for those extra hours outside of work hours thinking about work. So you're not getting anything from that. That should be one of the biggest reasons for you to let it go. You're not being compensated for overthinking about work. Additionally, it sounds like you're barely scraping by with your free time and your ability to be mentally unplugged. And if you don't do that, if you don't find a way to let it go, in time it's going to run you down. You're going to eventually find yourself one day where you just don't have the energy to do anything, right? And that serves no one. Both points talk about how the way you're thinking right now does not serve you at all. So you have to keep in mind that your health, the negative and positive aspects of your health, do build up over time. And at this rate, eventually you're going to hit that wall and you're going to hit it hard. That wall is going to be made of brick. That wall is going to be made of concrete. It's not going to be good. I think one of the things that this working economy, the society has taught us is that we have to be so on. And different jobs do kind of ask you to be on during off hours, like any kind of communications position where you're overseeing content and or social media activity. You kind of have to be on all the time, which isn't necessarily fair, especially because typically you're not being compensated for being on out of those hours. But it makes sense sometimes to a degree, to be asked to do that. In this case, I'd say no. Like, honestly, approach it with the idea of health-wise, it's for the better. You're not being compensated for overthinking. And ultimately, in the long run, it'll allow you to maintain your energy and to keep going, especially if you're looking to either work your way up through that company or move on to something else. If you decide to switch jobs and go to a different company, you don't want to go into a new company already run down, right? You want to have the energy to be able to make that shift. Let's see here. Received an offer from a competing company, but not sure if it's the right move to make. I work as a construction special inspector. The firm that I'm currently working for, I've been very happy with for the last 3.5 years. But recently, I was contacted by another locally owned company wanting to hire me. It would come with a small pay cut to start, but potentially have a larger opportunity to grow in the near future. The rest of the roles and responsibilities I will have are essentially unchanging. Is it worth a small pay cut to grow more down the line? First things first, I would make sure that there's not a non-compete in place that you'd have to contend with. I'm going to assume that if you're at the point where you've been offered a job, you've interviewed with them, and that's already been discussed. If your current company isn't offering you really any chances to evolve or develop after 3.5 years, if they don't have the asset bandwidth for it to elevate you to better earnings and better responsibilities, then yeah, the pay cut part, that is totally your call. It depends on how well you've been able to manage your finances and your bills thus far with your current company, and if the pay cut would affect that much at all. Also get a gauge of like how the period of time between that initial smaller pay rate and when you would start seeing those opportunities to grow. It looks like it would be pretty soon. So I think it would be a fine move. 3.5 years is a pretty good time to be with a company. But if you're at that wall where you're like, okay, I want to advance, I want to see more, but I'm not somewhere with that bandwidth, then yeah, I'd say move on. It's totally your call. I think it's a good move. The pay cut is your call. That's dependent on you and whether or not you'd be able to maintain everything. Let's see. Constantly being outcasted at work. Don't like that. Hey, so I work at a fast food place, only doing kitchen all day. Sometimes it gets to be a lot doing cooking and assembling the food on my own with multiple orders coming in. I brought this up to my general manager to let her know I need some help in the kitchen. Since then, she's been on several people's cases to help me and ensure I'm not doing everything by myself. But my coworkers don't like working with me. I'm not sure why. I just do my job and keep out when needed. I'm not rude, I'm quiet and shy. There's an age gap between me and some of my coworkers. I'm older than them, but I don't look my age. Most of my coworkers find out my age and want nothing to do with me. Today, there was an argument about who had to work in the kitchen with me, and no one wanted to do it. I just don't know how I'm so unlikable. I left work early today, and as soon as I got to the car, tears came streaming down my face. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of feeling like I never fit in anywhere. Firstly, I hate that you're feeling that. I hate that's your experience. You shouldn't be in a position where you're coming out of work and breaking down like that. If there's nothing you can recall, maybe a conversation that got misconstrued or anything on your end that didn't get received well, what I would do is firstly, with this GM, I wouldn't have her. If I could advise her, I would be like, don't get on people's cases, but just create a schedule and say, hey, this is who's helping in the kitchen. Go do it. If you're in a fast food place, typically they're being cross-trained, so I don't know why this would seem like a big deal to them anyway. But as far as the being ostracized at work, I would just have the GM facilitate a conversation. Again, communication is so important in the workspace. But have them facilitate a conversation. Be like, look, guys, I don't know what the issue is here. I'm feeling like I'm not wanted here. I don't know why. Can someone tell me what it is that is causing this dissonance between myself and the rest of you guys? Because it doesn't make sense to me. I can't recall any singular incident that would have started this. I can't figure out why this is going on, right? So if you can help me understand what can be done here, that'll work best for everybody. Because this is, at this point, it's not healthy for me. And honestly, dude, if it's that kind of situation, I would see if there's another option for you. Go see if you can go somewhere else. Because you shouldn't be in that kind of environment. That's not going to work out for you. And again, you shouldn't be going to your car after work and breaking down because people are ostracizing you for seemingly no reason. And an age gap, sure as hell, is not a reason for anyone to be ostracizing you. So definitely have that convo, because you should feel comfortable at work. All right, let's see here. People who say they are too busy to take a lunch break, come on. Yes, work life is busy, but just take a break for your own good and mental health. I'm always busy, but I find once I've had a lunch break, it gives me a new wind for the afternoon and I'm more productive. If not, I feel lethargic for the afternoon. Nothing is so important that half an hour or even a 10-minute walk around the block to get some fresh air won't hurt. Sorry for the rant, but this is the guy I work with. He literally only gets up from his desk to go to the toilet. It drives me mad. So I definitely agree. Here, I am not about skipping a lunch break or any kind of break. I am, as much as I like to be the employee who does put 100% into the projects that I do, I am not going to turn away an opportunity to take the mental load that I've already taken on for the morning, allow it to dissipate during a lunch break, so that, again, you come into the afternoon more refreshed and you have more bandwidth for it. I'm going to be using the word bandwidth a lot this morning, apparently. I mean, and I get it, though. Some people are very dedicated, and I think employers do appreciate that, but always take into consideration is that level of dedication where you're putting your, again, mental and physical health aside for it. Is that going to work in your favor in the long run? Because we've had a couple of submissions this morning talking about how if you don't find a way to let go, it's going to run you down. So just make sure you consider that if you're the kind of person who does brush off their lunchtime and just keep working through the entire day. Keep that in mind. You're going to get sick. I'm telling you. All right. So let's see. Feeling guilty for taking sick time. That sounds weird, but okay. Hey there. Does anyone else feel guilty for using their sick time? I am incredibly fortunate to have a good sick leave program at work. And that being said, if we use too much of our provided sick time, it gets brought up in our reviews. For example, in the past 5 years, I've had attendance brought up despite the fact that I've always carried over extra sick days into the new year. This year, however, I've been hit with one thing after another and have almost used my entire sick time allotment, which is 8 days. Does anyone else struggle with feeling anxious and guilty for using sick time? How do you deal with that feeling? So I experienced that when I was greener, during college and coming out of college, because I think when you come out of college and you've had teachers who are helping to prep you for the business world, that you are kind of taught to go above and beyond. So the idea of asking for sick time seems like a little bit of somehow almost like a betrayal. But over time I got over that, and I will take my sick time. I will take my PTO time. I will take my not bereavement time. Hopefully I don't have bereavement necessities, but I don't anymore. Now what I think is odd is that they are apparently not able to. Here's the thing. So if you've been there for 5 years and only recently have been sick more than usual, I would hope that in your review that is considered, that you've been there for so long, and typically you have spare sick days to carry over into the new year. But no, if you're sick, you're sick. The first story this morning was about someone who was sick and wouldn't go home, right? Go home. Take sick time. Let your body heal. To give yourself the time you need to process the bug, the whatever illness that you are experiencing, and then just come back when you feel better. There really should be no reason for you to overthink taking your sick time if you're sick, right? Now, if you're faking it, and you're faking it to the point where you are using more than usual amounts of your sick time, sure, I'd feel a little guilty about it. But if you're sick, use it if you have it. I mean, heck, you don't want to get the rest of your team sick. Am I overthinking it? So I joined a ship agency a month ago. The interview went well, and they hired me right away. This is my first job. The boss is great and a nice person. The problem is I don't get much work. Most of the time, I am just sitting and watching videos on my phone. In a month, I have been there and I did work for like 3 days. Most of the time, I am sitting. I like the boss, and he said he will give me work soon, and he's still testing my abilities. I got paid this month, which is great. He even increased my salary from what we had agreed upon when I joined. So is it supposed to be like this? I keep thinking I'm not good enough, so I don't get work. I keep overthinking I will get fired. Oh, I keep overthinking that I'll get fired when I did nothing wrong. Am I overthinking it? So one thing I would do is talk to your boss and ask them, okay, like what areas, if there are areas that I still have to work on, should I focus on? Because if it is a thing where it's like he's still testing you to see if when you're ready to get more work and that's what's keeping you back, and maybe giving him pause, be like, hey, okay, at this point, what should my focuses be? What things do I need to make sure that I have put some time into so that I am able to operate more efficiently and get more work? I don't know if their salary is at all based on the amount of work you get or if it's just hourly or salary. But if that is the case, definitely have that convo, Otherwise, yeah, just make sure that you know what page to be on for yourself. Obviously, if this is your first job, you're going to have a lot of nerves. And I don't know what your experience with a ship agency prior to that is, if you understand kind of the workings of those businesses in general. But just make sure you're on the same page, like you know what your position is. And if there's area of, I'm sure there are areas where you can develop better, but as far as knowing what your current ones are that your boss wants to focus on, yeah, there's no issue asking them what that is and just making sure that you know what you're doing. Let's see here. We got time for one more this morning. When is it time to leave a job? I became a bar back for a music venue in April 2022. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, read that wrong. I absolutely loved the job. The hours are flexible. It was hard work, slightly underpaid, but I was really enjoying it. The management has changed over the last 2 months, and now we're working 40 to 50 hours a week. Partly because of an uptick in shows, but also because of bad scheduling. There's only one other bar back, so it's hard to get a day off. The flexibility is now gone, and the underpaid aspect is really coming out. I hate to be there for less than a year, and I hate that I once really liked this job. Next month's schedule, I'm going to try to be more verbal about my scheduling, but with only 2 of us, I don't want to screw over my coworker by taking days off because it's so physically demanding. I was thinking to stick it out until the end of the year, but how can I make sure to leave on good terms when it's mentally and physically exhausting at this point? So one thing I want to make sure I would consider for this is whether or not the underpaid aspect of the job, the bad scheduling, is also reflective in the kind of personalities that the management has. Like, is it a crappy manager, as in crappy person, or just not able to coordinate their job well? Ultimately, the fact that there's only 2 of you and there seems to be underpaid aspects to the job is not your concern ultimately, in the sense that if you wanted to leave for a better opportunity, that shouldn't be what holds you back. If there's only 2 of you working or available for this job, that's a problem on the agency's or the venue's end, not yours. And as much as I think as much as it's appreciated that you are considering your coworker, I'd say the same thing to your coworker. It's not their concern either, in the sense that if they want to leave too, like, that's the venue's thing. If they're not able to schedule properly, if they are underpaying you, and if management just can't seem to get it together, then there's really no sense, I think, in you staying there. So definitely feel free to look into a new opportunity. And if you and your coworker are close, I'd be like, hey, look, I'm looking to probably leave at some point here. You might want to look too, because I don't know how much work they'll put on you if I'm no longer available. And at the same time, good terms, the best way to go about good terms is, while it's partially on your end, to make sure you do kind of the proper things like put in a 2 weeks notice and just yada, 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 or let your current management know that, hey, you are looking at some other opportunities, and they should expect to see some, maybe hear from a prospective new employer. The hard part about ending on good terms is that it's also partially on the management's end. So depending on the kind of management you have could affect what the good terms really are. So I'd say, as far as leaving on good terms, always be honest in a respectful manner if you can, unless of course the management just sucks. Give it 2 weeks notice if you can, or depending on how bad it is, and if you have something locked in, just go, just to make the switch. There are managers out there who will be like, and I've had one myself who told me to my face, if they were ever blindsided about another company that I was looking into, and I didn't let them know beforehand, then she would happily use her influence to ruin what little, if any, reputation I had, which is horrible, and no one should be trying to make that seem like a flex, but some of those people are out there. But again, if this company, the venue, is not being managed properly, that's not on you. It's not something that you should allow to hold you back. Just keep moving forward, do what you got to do, and yeah, make sure that you're in a position to grow. All right, thank you so much for joining me this morning on this special Tuesday episode of Casual Babble. This episode will be available for viewing on YouTube immediately, so be sure that if you didn't get to enjoy most of the show this morning live, you get to enjoy it on your way into work. In the meantime, I will see you all tomorrow morning for our usually scheduled Wednesday show,